Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the unofficial companion podcast to HBO Max's hit show, Industry. I'm Jen.
I'm Kristen.
And we are the Wall Street Skinny, two former investment bankers who are live in New York because we are headed to the Industry premiere tonight for season 4.
Yep.
We are here to give you the skinny on the best show on television, hands down, and to tell you what's real and what's Hollywood. This is just amazing. We had no idea that this would even come together.
This was 48 hours ago.
Yep.
Literally, our head of partnerships, she calls us, she goes, you guys need to be sitting down. She FaceTimes us and she's like, you guys, you just got invited to go to HBO frickin' season 4 industry premiere and interview the cast on the red carpet live in New York City. And we were like scrambling. We're like, oh my God, we have to figure out, like, we need to book our hotel. We need to book our, we made it happen. Then here we are. And we are so excited because we now need to do the season 3 finale. So that's what we're focused on, obviously, today. And then tonight we are going to be watching the premiere of season 4. And then tomorrow we're back in the studio. We're going to be going through that episode and we'll give you kind of the behind the scenes of like what the frickin' premiere was like. So we are so excited.
This is thank you guys all so much who have supported us along this journey and like made this possible. I mean, the fact that we get to do this and call it work is a dream come true.
Yeah, like
we were at dinner last night and Kristen was saying, she was like, I have totally changed my mind on the merits of being an analyst of literature and of text and of
we
film,
talked about this.
Because you're like, this has been such a deeply rewarding experience.
Well, it's funny, right? Because people, I mean, I went to college and I studied engineering. And the thing that I loved about engineering is it's puzzles. I really, like, it's funny. I loved electricity and magnetism and I loved genetics. Not because I actually cared so much about like the electricity and magnetism part, but I was like, it's so cool to be able to figure out how does this work? What, you know, you're given this problem. And the thing that's really fun about literature and these shows, and especially industry, because I feel like we talked about this, it's such a rich text that you watch it the first time and you're just like, okay, cool. I don't know. I talked with like the Rishi episode, which people were saying was like the best one ever. And I was like, I basically was just having a panic attack the whole time. But then when we went back and we went through it and you're like, oh my God, this word ties to this thing and it's all planted. It's a giant puzzle and it's tied in with, again, commentary on society and politics. And it is this work of art. But if you look at it from the lens of a puzzle, it's so much cooler. And Jen was like, there's only 19 plots in any story. And like, you need to go back and read the Bible as a text to understand some of the stories. And I was like, okay, I need to do this. So we might at some point have a whole new show where it's us going back. Kristen as like a, you know, engineer becoming like a literature person. But anyway, I mean, this has been so much fun. And I just want to thank the writers of Industry for putting together just such an amazing show. And this episode, I mean, we haven't obviously talked about this yet, but I loved it. I was crying during it.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I think it was very clear to me, and we can kind of discuss this as we go through, but it was clear to me that I think the writers of the show thought that this was it. Like that this was their swan song and this was their last chance to like leave it all on the table. And they really did. They left it all on the field with this, but it is, I think, something that so many shows struggle with is how to end and how to end well. And that's notorious, right? Game of Thrones. I think the final episode of Game of Thrones is like one of the worst rated episodes of TV of all time. I would argue that season 3, episode 8, Infinite Largesse, which we'll be talking about today, is one of the top 5 episodes of the entire series of Industry. It is extremely rare that a finale has that level of, I mean, I only really have like one quibble with the plot,
which I had the
we'll
same
talk
one.
about.
Yeah.
But I mean, this episode gets an A in my book, and I'm so excited to talk about it. And I think what happened is they did such a great job with it that the reaction was so warm and so positive that they were like, renew this show. Like, this is great. You guys can do this. Where was this all along?
Yeah.
So I'm so excited to get into it. Again, the title of the episode is Infinite Largesse. Largesse, for those of you who don't know, means generosity, effectively.
I'm just like, it's large. This is, by the way, again, like not an English major and like maybe like, I mean, I might come across like English is my second language. It's not, like, which is pretty sad. I will say though, but this is the thing, and we talked about this as well last night. There's obviously different terms and lingo in the UK versus the US. So the way
like
that
a
people
Bosman,
talk.
like we talked about last time.
Yeah. So again, some of that is that. But also, I mean, the writers went to Oxford, and I do think that they were like, I mean, maybe they weren't necessarily formally trained in a lot of this stuff.
It seems like it's a requirement at Oxford that you maybe just memorize all of Shakespeare's works. Apparently, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But when you think about the term largesse and you think about, right, that theme of generosity, it's an interesting way to round out what has not been a story about generosity in any way, shape, or form. None of our characters are particularly generous with one another, except for, of late, Robert, who seems to be showing generosity towards Yasmin and,
Yes.
going on this whole journey together. Also, in the theme of industry and the world of industry and the financial services industry, generosity and largesse and like doing things out of the kindness of your heart, not exactly a theme we've seen and not exactly one that exists.
Yeah.
That's what that cued for me. There is another reference in here where that title comes from. That was not one that was known to me.
Yes.
And we'll get there when we get there. So I'd love it if you can kick us off, Kristen. I mean, I'm excited to do this in person. And guys, bear with us because Kristen has a lot of these lines written down.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to be reading off your laptop when you're recording virtually. It's another thing to be like,
I have like this tiny little laptop that I now need to read off of. So bear with me as I try to get through this. But I love this episode so much and I'm so excited to get into it. So it opens with Robert. And like he had through this whole 3 seasons always been struggling to be good at what he was doing, right? The issue with freaking Nicole and like just he was really always struggling. But it opens with him and he has this swagger about him. He
looks
this
great.
confidence.
His hair.
He looks amazing. And he says, and I want to like try to capture how he says it. It seems like he's talking to a group of VCs, but he's like, I know you've all been programmed to expect something radical, but what I have for you here today isn't really new at all. Then it goes and cuts over to, we're at Pierpoint and Eric is pitching Al-Miraj. Because if you remember, from the past episode. They have not yet officially sold, but they are in talks with this sovereign wealth fund out of the Middle East, and they're trying to basically get some money to come in to save Pierpoint.
And what I will say is that because we know where everyone is in this timeline, it's very clear then that scene with Robert is a flash into the future. So we are now coming back in time to the present action. And in my closed captioning under Robert, it literally says dreamy music. And I don't know how it works. This would be a great question for the editors if they tell the closed captioning people like what to say. You know what I'm saying? Like ominous music, dreamy music.
Yeah.
But I do think this is a very meta moment, getting back to the fact that they thought this was their last hurrah.
Yeah.
That, listen, when it comes to the concept of putting together a finale, it's like, what are you going to do that's going to blow the audience away? You've got Lost. You've got Game of Thrones. What did it all actually mean? And so it feels to me like this is very much a love letter from the writers of the show saying, hey, listen, everyone is always looking for something so amazing. This is a tale as old as time. And we're going to tell you all of the old stories here again, just repackaged in a different way.
Yeah.
And so it's a question of how do you tell a new story or how do you tell a story in a new way that feels fresh and feels relevant and real?
Yeah.
So it was very emotional watching this the second time, kind of knowing how it all ends.
I know.
And
Yep.
So continue.
All right, so he's talking to Al-Miraj, and basically they're still trying to pitch them on doing this acquisition. And so he says he knows that they want to become entrenched in the Western markets with like sports franchise and entertainment venues. And it's interesting, right? Even now we're talking about, right, in the news, there is the possible acquisition of Warner Brothers, which is so funny, by the way, because again, HBO is owned by Warner Brothers. And like they are literally
This
at
is so
heart.
meta.
It's so meta.
Correct.
But, and part of the thing, so for those of you guys who are not following our content all the time, because I do have lots of reels on this potential acquisition, but there is a bidding war for Warner Brothers Discovery where you have Netflix trying to buy some of the assets, and then you have Paramount trying to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, but they don't have all the money, so they're basically getting funding from some sovereign wealth funds out of the Middle East. So it is, again, and this is recent. Like, it's not like the writers knew about this, but this is so.
This episode aired
like,
a year ago, and now the story of Pierpoint is the story of HBO. I'm so glad you caught. Yes, that is 100%. Yes.
Yes. Anyway, so he says, look, finance isn't a space you can just break into. And so Wilhelmina says that if they do the acquisition, they're going to be buying not only the U.S. bank licenses, but also the U.S. It's plug and play.
May I also just say, finance isn't just a space you can break into. My goodness, how many of our DMs and how much of our content is how do you break into finance, right?
Yeah.
And the story of people breaking in has been the narrative of industry. It started with that opening scene with Harper talking about the industry as being the last true meritocracy, right? Why? How did you break in coming from a non-target school? So I don't think that the term breaking in and the idea that you have to have this pedigree to get a foot in the door. And all of a sudden, the traditional buyer of this, it's not the Barclays, it's not the whomever, it's this new money out of the Gulf that now is now breaking in a very different way. So I don't think that was a mistake.
Yep. So then someone comes on the call and says that it is Mikey Leibowitz from Vanguard, who is one of their biggest investors, and is asking, like, why is Pierpoint showing so much leg? Like, why are you giving away so much? And Tom is like, careful, Mikey. Like, care to explain what you mean there? Because they're trying to get this deal done. And so Philip, who is, again, the guy who is, we love Philip, and he says that I think what he means is that Al-Miraj Holdings is just a private equity makeup masking the true face of a sovereign wealth fund. As long as we're all aware, this is state-backed financing, which also, like, I mean, it's a sovereign wealth fund. I think they're trying to just explain for the listener that this is pretty typical, like that you would have these investments.
I
don't
think
know.
what they're really trying to get at here is that this isn't just some independent investment vehicle. This is something that carries with it the values and the principles of their government. And I think that's something that might be lost on people who think of a sovereign wealth fund as something else, potentially.
Right. So someone then comes in from the Al-Miraj team. They say something in Arabic, and the translator asks, we'd like to know why you think your imperialism is better than ours. Again, because they're in the UK. So it's, and we then go to the next scene. All right, so the next scene, Harper is in this car. Like, she has just been kidnapped.
Kidnapping plot. Yes. Oh my God, with ominous music.
I just go in the middle of nowhere.
To a river in the middle of nowhere. I was like, she's going to be shot in the back of the head and dumped into the river.
Oh yeah. That's what she definitely, I mean, the ominous music is like letting you know that this is not good. So we see Otto, and he's like, I don't know what he's doing, like getting oysters?
No,
Shucking
he
oysters?
is fishing, and he is like gutting a fish. And this scene, as it plays out, we'll talk about it, but this is so evocative to me of that initial scene in Game of Thrones where you were introduced to Tywin Lannister, and they literally had the actor skinning a deer from start to finish as he gives this speech about all of his values and establishes who the Lannisters are and what his moral credo is. That is what they are doing with Otto in this scene. Otto is Tywin Lannister.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So Otto says, et tu brute, which again, you will get into what that means.
No, I mean, but you guys know there's not much to it, right? Like, that's what Caesar allegedly said when Brutus he was stabbed in the back. Yes.
And he says, Harper, people who fuck around with my investments tend to find themselves cut off from society. But as he's saying this, he's like, this is like very ominous that he's whatever. With a knife.
Like, pulling apart this thing that was once alive.
Yes. But again, it's clear that he's not talking about this in the sense that I'm going to murder you, but he then clarifies. He says, invasions of privacy, bureaucratic entanglements, do sit down. I have ways and means of making people's lives hell. And she says, oh, so you're threatening me out loud now? And he says, if I told you that sovereign wealth money had come into Pierpoint, would you use that information to take profit on your short? Harper says the whole game is information. And he says, and he kind of gives his background. He's like, basically, I wasn't handed anything. I had to work hard to get here. And he says, betting on sure things is the aim. And Harper says, but Petra doesn't see it that way. Otto says, it's probably more shameful to trust our friends than to be deceived by them. She's a tattletale, and it's why I called you here today. He then takes a sip of like a flask. So he's like, whatever. He says, I want a spiritual successor to my operations. So it seems, by the way, that he's actually bringing her here in like the opposite of, like it's, so he's then saying, I want a spiritual successor to my operations. Peter's too old, and even he's lost the colloquial breath.
Cloacal
breath and bought a grouse more. Again, the hell does that mean?
So in British, this is like saying he's finally learned to walk upright, no longer is a Neanderthal, and he's bought a house in the Hamptons. So a cloacal breath is like how a turtle breathes, I guess. It's basically like, again, he's saying like he's evolved past his baser upbringing where he was like a ruthless, sharp elbows, like, cutting edge trader and, super scrappy. And now he's gone soft, right?
Got it.
He's gotten too refined and gone soft.
Got it. So he says, I want someone who believes in trading like I trade, who understands that nothing comes from nothing. Harper says, I'd be an interesting figurehead. The optics are good, because remember, she's like a young Black woman. And he says, you'd make my fund look terribly modern. But I also want someone who understands and wears the attendant downside risk that I've worn for years. Look, when you're as good as us, you don't get caught. But one day there might be a knock on your door that requires a fucking expensive lawyer. Fuck me. That all does sound rather Faustian, doesn't it? Forgive me. I'm not Beelzebub.
Beelzebub.
What is that?
The devil.
Oh, okay. Actually, he says, I'm something far more dangerous, a primate aware of his own mortality. So we can talk a little bit about this if like there's anything more there.
We don't need to get into everything about Faust because we will be here forever, right? But basically, I mean, again, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? He's saying, I'm not evil for evil's sake, right? I am, acutely aware of my own mortality and basically will do anything I can for self-preservation and for preservation of succession. There's this theme of succession because it makes you so happy. I know. Now, Otto isn't the one who's always talking about family and succession. That has been Lord Norton.
Yes.
But they have a shared interest in common, which is, in part, Henry Mock, right?
Yes.
But is also the future of who is going to be running the show in Britain.
Yes.
So these guys are pulling the strings and they're thinking about the world that they will live behind. And the theme of succession, too, thinking about the world that you'll leave behind, is not lost on us. Again, viewing everything through the lens of they thought this was their last. Yes, this is the end. Exactly.
Yep.
Are you leaving the world a better place behind you, a worse place, or what kind of legacy are you leaving?
Yeah. So the next scene, we're in the car with Yaz now, and she gets a phone call.
They're
and it's
at
Rose.
a gas station.
Yes.
On this road trip. So we've got Yasmin still in her sweats that she was wearing when Robert plucked her out of her depression with her pizza boxes and her wine. Because remember, this is continuing this 24-hour news cycle, if you will. And they're at this gas station, and Robert's inside, and Yasmin is sitting alone in the car.
Yes. And so Rose says, what is this email? Yaz is like, you know what it is. And Rose says, how dare you try to intimidate me? So she goes on and says that basically Yaz is like, you're going to pay the money. You're going to pay the restitution. Leave my fucking family alone. And so Yaz starts to threaten her. She's like, the board doesn't care about you. They'll kick you to the curb. And she's like, how is it going to look that a female led firm was basically hiding a man who was preying on women?
The specific line she says is, this is the systemic cover-up by a female-led institution of a man's consistent pattern of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to the, I think, nail in the coffin line from each of the from the end of the last episode and from each of the season finales of the first 2 episodes, it was always the institution doesn't suffer.
Yeah.
So there was this female-led institution with this pattern of this, awful sexual abuse that they were covering up and effectively, endorsing, if you will. And so what Yasmin is saying is like, the institution can go ahead and suffer, not me, not the individual.
Yep.
And I will add too that, well, let's finish the scene between the two of them, and then we can talk about the bigger picture here.
Yep. So Yaz is like, basically, I will feed you to the wolves. I will feed you to the press. Like, this is going to make great content. And Rose is like, well, who do you know? Yaz says, you forget who my family are. Rose says, what family? Which, by the way, this is like I feel like a little bit planting the seed of And so Yaz then says, this is your final warning. And Rose tells her, you sound exactly like Charles. Yaz says, I sound nothing like him. He was weak, and then hangs up. And as Yaz is there, you see her look in to the window where...
Before that, when she's sitting in the car, before Rose calls, she looks out the window and sees like a minivan full of a family with screaming kids, this bedraggled-looking, middle-class reading older woman.
Yes.
And I do think Yaz is sitting there in this car thinking about what her future might look like if she goes down this path with Robert.
Yes.
Where... she's going to be a mom with a bunch of screaming kids in a middle-class life, having fallen so far from grace, because that is the kind of upbringing that Robert came from.
Yeah.
And I think that she doesn't know how she feels about that future. She then has this whole conversation with Rose.
Yeah.
And now she's thinking about, okay, well, who is my family? Mm-hmm. That's when she immediately looks to Robert inside.
And she sees him doing a scratch ticket, like one of those Powerball type things or one
correct.
of the... And it's funny. I did watch an interview with the writers, and one of the things I think is important to figure out is like, when did she make the decision that she was going to choose Henry over Robert? Mm-hmm. In my opinion, it was right now.
Yep.
Now, it's interesting because like when you listen to the writers, they make it sound like they do say, oh, we want to leave it up to interpretation, but that for them, it was possibly later. I think it was right now. I think it was Rose saying you don't have a family. And then her seeing him scratching this ticket, and to your point, this family, and she's like, that is not the life that I want.
Yep.
And then all of these little things keep kind of getting dropped in her lap where it's like, you could marry the person you love, or you could marry the person that's going to give you the status, the symbols, like give you everything. And by the way, that she always had. And I think like, to me, it was so obvious that seeing him do that, it was right then that she made that decision.
I think it starts to build. I think maybe she isn't just like cut and dry. But this is where she starts to put wheels in motion, whether she knows it or not, whether she's
Yeah.
angling for a final outcome
Yeah.
that happened. And by the way, the lotto ticket is doubly or triply metaphorical.
Yes.
Because on the one hand, Yasmin sees it as like this low tax thing, like that's voluntary taxation. You're literally just giving your money away. You're not going to win that, right? Like this is, who are the biggest players of the lotto? It's not wealthy, sophisticated people, right?
Right.
It's viewed as like a much more low class thing, right? There's also the gambling versus
Yeah, I was
trading
gonna say
thing,
that. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
this
yeah.
is just straight up gambling. There's also the idea of a lotto ticket. Venture capital,
Yes.
startups are lotto tickets.
Yes.
Going back to Henry Muck,
Yes.
most businesses fail. Most businesses fail. Most businesses fail. The likelihood is that Little Labs is going to fail because they don't have any big investors. Robert, who has been a terrible salesman, is going on the road as this traveling salesman effectively to raise money for them, where he has shown no talent for this previously.
Yeah.
And then
This is literally when she picks up the phone and calls Henry Muck.
well, yes, but so quite finally, the other thing with the lotto ticket is for him, the big pie in the sky thing that he wants to win has been Yasmin.
No.
So he is scratching off the lotto ticket of life, hoping that he gets the girl. And I think that there's so much to read into this one silly little lotto ticket, right? But it's the dream of this lower class guy who has come into the industry, who has, you know, built and is now building his way up and is going to get the girl of his dreams and live out like the American dream, if you will, of like social mobility in this world, like vis-a-vis all of this.
America makes so much more sense for someone like him anyway. So like, anyway, So whatever. So as Yaz picks up the phone, she calls Henry Muck, and Robert, then it flashes to him and he looks out and sees her on the phone and she's kind of like smiling and she's like starting to flirt a little bit. And again, I think he kind of knows at that point too that she's probably, I think he started like.
I think he wonders.
Yeah. So in the next scene, we're back at Pierpoint and Tom is in the room and says, we're over barrel. If we look like we're trading to zero at US Open, they'll buy us for $1 and we'll be grateful. We need share price stability. So Wilhelmina says, how do we ensure that? Tom says that he's flying to New York City to speak with the big investors. Vanguard obviously was on the call. They sounded edgy. Says that he's going to speak with BlackRock and Berkshire Hathaway, who we assume are also big investors, and make sure that the Al-Miraj offer flies through uncontested. And crucially, they say that they basically need to sell this to their employees, that this is just another day. And so Eric says that he'll do that. He'll speak to London. Wilhelmina, I think, is like, she says, Eric should be the one to do it. He is the voice of the status quo.
She says, if we're looking to maintain the status quo, Eric is the voice of the status quo.
Yeah.
And Eric looks totally surprised. I don't think he thought that Wilhelmina was going to be like, yeah, like he's the guy. So all of a sudden he realizes like, oh, I've been deputized by Wilhelmina, who is clearly ascending to power now.
She's CFO, right? She's also CFO.
Adler, correct.
Yeah.
And so she's our Erin Callan. And so Eric then suddenly gets excited, gets like this little twinkle in his eyes and says, yes, I can do it. I'll speak to London.
Yep. So the next scene we're back with Robert.
There's more to that scene. So then,
hold on,
Tom says, I can't imagine how many billions of words you've said in sales.
Yeah.
Time for some choice ones.
Yeah.
And it's funny because then Eric then looks meaningfully at Wilhelmina, understanding that basically this is him auditioning for the job. Him getting Al-Miraj, that ain't it. Now it's who are you going to be within this organization? Yeah. And just to reiterate for people who may not have caught the last episode, all of this being so grounded in actual historical precedent, Bear Stearns was sold for $2. So the sold for $1 is like, we will be.
It's actually like a real thing. This isn't just like, and by the way, the last episode, if you haven't caught it yet, is literally like a 3.5 hour run through of the financial crisis.
I've edited it down. It won't be 3.5 hours.
2.5. Anyway, all right. So next scene, we're back with Robert and Yaz. And as he's walking into the car, he throws like some chips or whatever, processed food. And she's like, it's 9 a.m. And he jokes, never too early for these, which is like, again, he's just like this cute, like whatever. But she is seeing it as like through this lens of instead of like him just being like having fun, like cute, whatever. I mean, honestly, like Henry Muck could have done the same thing, but she wouldn't take it that way.
They're never on the same page with food, which is one of these cues. In the last episode, he brought her the battered sausage. Now he's bringing her chips from a gas station. Yep. And maybe it was cute at first, but Yaz doesn't seem so charmed by gas station fare anymore. All of a sudden. So I think there are these subtle cues that are happening that are showing she is looking at this life that's being laid out in front of her and being like, we'll talk about this.
Yep. So Robert asks as he comes into the car, he asks who she was talking to, and she says that she was on the phone with Henry. And he says, well, what did Henry want? She's like, I called him. And she says, I thought his dumb, smart money might be a good place to start seed funding conversations. Now, the dumb, smart money, we have talked about this before on like our big podcasts and stuff, but basically dumb money is like retail investors, whereas smart money is like the institutions. So it's interesting that they're calling him like the dumb, smart, like he's technically smart money because he's like, I mean, he probably has like a family office. He's an institutional investor, but he's dumb. So like you can easily get his smart money, but he's dumb smart money. So I kind of loved that. But those are like, it's actually like a real reference. I mean, there's a freaking movie called Dumb Money. Anyway, so Robert says he was thinking the same thing, but he thought that Yas might be uncomfortable. She says, fuck that. Take the money and run, babe. She adds that he wants them to swing by newspaper guy, Lord Norton's house on the way home. And Rob's like, you're not tired? Because remember where we found her in the last episode? She was a shell of a human. She was like, withering away on the floor, boxes of pizza, blah, blah, blah. And he like took her on this road trip to kind of get her out of
where
just
she
this
then
funk.
did psilocybin in the middle of the night, gashed her hand open, which by the way seems to have magically healed in this episode, not to point out a continuity issue.
Yes. But anyway, he's like, you're not too tired. And she said, I got a jolt of vicarious energy at the idea of you rinsing the bitch's coffers. Yasmin asks, would Little Labs move to New York City? He says, California. She says, shame. I'd murder a little res at Polo Bar. And then she specifically references.
Glass of Runard, dozen oysters, God, heaven.
Yes.
So, okay. What she's saying is, it's the two of us against Henry Muck. We are teaming up. Yeah. We're going to raid his coffers for all this money to get your startup going, babe. And Robert is like, okay, like, let's go. It's the two of us. That's your motivation. Whether she fully believes that is questionable. It flashes to her face. And there is this like a little bit of, it seems, guilt, perhaps, that her intentions in going there, I do not think are purely to help Robert.
No, I think I think that the seed was planted.
I don't think she has fully plotted this entire thing out. I do not.
I think the only reason that I now think that is I've watched this episode 3 times. So knowing where it's going, I'm like, of course this is where. But it's like, to your point, it's probably where the seed was planted.
Yes,
but
I think the seed continually gets planted. And fun fact, I actually was following the creators on Instagram yesterday because obviously they're here in New York for the premiere. And guess where they were? Polo Bar.
Oh, no way.
Their comments were not open at the bottom of their stories, but I wanted to be like, did you get a glass of Runard? Like,
we should have done that.
I wanted to, but their things weren't
like, it's
open.
a super exclusive, like it's really hard to get a reservation. Like you have to be someone to get in. Like it's not, this is not like a, we went to ABC Kitchen last night, you like make a reservation. No, this is exclusive.
But I think there's a much more important line here than that. Right before they're about to drive off, she says, did you win?
Yes.
And he doesn't know what she's referencing. And she goes, your little lotto thing. Did you win?
Yeah.
And he laughs and he says, of course not.
Yeah.
She doesn't say anything and looks quietly down as they drive off. Yeah. They are seriously making Robert here look like, at the beginning of a movie where like the wife dies? Like, that like dreamy footage where she just looks like the salt of the earth. They are literally making Robert look like the person who's about to get murdered. Like just so sweet and innocent. He just wants to take care of Yasmin. But also back to one of my favorite titles, So Many Ways to Lose.
Yeah.
Robert has always been a loser in the world of industry.
Yeah.
Of course he didn't win the lotto. And do we really think that Robert is going to come out on top of all of this? The only clue we have is him with his tousled, like shaggy hair,
because
looking
of the
good
flash
at the beginning.
forward.
Exactly.
And, I mean, look, it's funny because, and I had said this to you, with all of these episodes, it's like when industry comes in is so important. We still don't have it. So I just wanted to put that out there. Okay. So next scene, we're back with Eric, and he is in the same auditorium that we saw him in the very first season, addressing all of Pierpoint, or, because he's not only talking to people in the auditorium, he is being broadcast on the trading floor, and people are like glued to what he is saying.
Well, nobody's listening to him.
Well, sorry. So you're right. You're right. It starts off and nobody is listening to what he is saying.
It is all just people talking over each other. He does not. He can't hold the room.
Oh, yeah. So in the beginning, you're right. He is not able to hold the room. Nobody's listening, and he's trying to give a speech and tell them that how you have to keep coming to work. And he says, "How do we carry ourselves through the turbulence in 2008? Like in the eye of the Lehman storm, hours from insolvency. What did we do? We came to work. We answered the phones. We printed tickets." And like Rishi is sitting there, and you just see him making a face. He's like, "Oh God!" And so he is not one won these people over yet. Someone then says, well, 2008 was different. We had capital reserves, good management, and like everyone's like, oh, you suck.
Yeah.
And so someone says, you are sending us down the river to the Gulf, of all places, the Gulf. They'll fire us all. Eric says.
And now people start applauding, by the way.
Yeah, they're applauding this other guy.
Everyone's like, we see right through all of this.
Yes. Eric says, because again, this is not public yet, he says it would be unwise to confirm or deny speculation. Everyone starts to get upset. And then Eric adds, given the sensitivity of our share price, again, he's trying to calm people down. He says, I sit in this room so many times, I've watched you grow.
As he realizes he's lost the room, he looks over at Wilhelmina, and Wilhelmina gives him this look like, figure it out.
Yes.
So he puts down the microphone in this remember, Eric has been up on stage now multiple times in front of us. He was there in season 1 talking to all the grads about what it was going to be like and all that fun stuff. But then also up at the COP conference.
Yes.
And he's been without a microphone as well, like in the boardroom, giving his salesy spiel, right? It's this folksy thing of like, I'm going to put down the microphone and like real talk to you. He's trying to break out all of his usual tricks.
Right. But it works. And that's the whole thing. Because when he initially starts to talk, like I said, people are like, no. And then he finally gives this impassioned speech. And you see, this is where it then flashes to the trading floor. And like you have, Rishi and Sweet Pea and Anwar and like everyone watching him. And it's like at the end, it's funny because he is ultimately able to sell this whole idea of like everything is fine, like things will be great. But you can see his face that he doesn't believe it himself. Like he knows that this is bullshit, but everyone else is for the most part, has bought it. And at the end, Wilhelmina is looking at him and you can tell that she's like, oh wow, like this is actually working.
Yeah, so let's go through the phases of Eric's speech. So once he puts the microphone down, what he says is, I've stood in this room many times. I've watched a lot of you grow up. I think if I could see myself as a grad now, me, immigrant son, bespectacled, so scared of my own shadow, swallowing down the promises of capitalism and meritocracy. Do I look like a man who was lied to today? And someone in the audience yells, your nose is growing, Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Like, it ain't working. So then he picks up the microphone again and says, our prospective partners believe in the principles that I heard on my very first day here. I cleaved them to my heart like you have. Pierpoint, people, this is what we're selling. How well you've come to embody what you've been taught. You are all safe. That is something. You are all safe because you are the asset. And other people are like, are we safe though? Like,
yeah.
And then Eric says, growth and change are inevitable, but this process must be anchored and shared, valued. Pierpoint's history is a history of change. First movers, quick winners. Whatever alleged deal you've heard about represents two axes using economic trust to put themselves in the box seat of a new world order. They want us and respect us for our history. We choose to respect them for their vision of a shared future. This is how we survive. Remember, everything good comes from two partners willingly coming to the table. Orderly financial exchange is the basis of harmony. Money tames the beast. Money is peace. Money is civilization. The end of the story, obviously at the end of this is the finale of the show, to the best of their knowledge, is money. Our partners believe this. They believe in us. We'll take their hand and build a bridge with our belief. Your desk is your house. So go home, go to work. Now the crowd is silent.
Yeah.
It cuts to the only person who's smiling and nodding is Ali, the guy who represents Al-Miraj. So he starts applauding.
Yeah.
And then the whole room falls in applauding behind him. So I think it's very interesting. It's not like the spontaneous applause came from
It's funny. It almost like reminds me of like that he's the one applauding, but like it reminds me a little bit of just the like mob and you know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, other people are clapping. Like maybe we all now believe this now.
Correct.
You know? And so it's so funny that it's like when you like have like the bots that try to change the conversation
yes, that's
online.
exactly what this is. So I don't think that everyone all of a sudden believed Eric and he did have the room. I think what happened is everyone objected and objected and objected, and eventually he started speaking with such such grandiose vision that everyone just kind of shut up and listened. And then Ali was like, yes, clap. Right? So it's like, don't you believe? And then I guess it's like, I guess I do believe. I don't know.
Okay, like,
but I don't think everyone's like, we are great. I do not think that this was the...
And we see later with the reaction from Sweet Pea and Rishi and all them. But yeah. And so anyway, so the next scene, Wilhelmina is talking to Eric in the now empty auditorium. And she says, what was all that shit about money is peace? And Eric said, I cribbed from a short story about an advertising executive called the Largesse of the Sea Maiden. And so I think that you, Jen, were like, you were like, I'm going to read this whole New Yorker article. And then, was it in New Yorker?
It was a short story that was published in the New Yorker, or at least part of
actually,
it.
I can't.
I spent 20 minutes reading this short, and I was like, I haven't even made a dent. I do not have, this is like 11 o'clock at night writing my notes. So I did not read the entire short story. So I apologize, guys. I'm delinquent in my
Your
duties.
English literature. Yeah.
This is what I was here for. I was born for this moment, and I dropped the ball. I'm so sorry.
All good.
But like, it's funny because I think what you hear a short story about an advertising executive. To me, I hear death of a salesman. And I was like, oh, I wonder if this is like if that's what we're supposed to be thinking of.
Yeah.
I do not know what ultimately happens in the largesse of the sea maiden.
Well,
so unfortunately.
He says, thought I'd hit all the targets, immigrant mentality, American promise, this place made me blah, 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 blah. ESG bullshit is what he says. So my guess is it probably is somehow tied to that.
I don't know, but I will just say this. He is giving Wilhelmina the idea that he didn't really believe or mean anything he said, that it was just a performance.
Yep.
I don't necessarily know how much he doesn't believe his own shtick.
Yeah.
And I think that there's that, am I lying? It's almost like the George Costanza, it's not a lie if you really believe it. And I think he's almost posturing with Wilhelmina, like, yeah, that was just some bullshit that I said to get them all in line or whatever. But I wonder if that's truly how he feels.
Yeah. I mean, it probably is. Again, like we know how much this place means to him.
I think we will come to find the answer to that question at the end.
Yeah. So Wilhelmina just says, good work. And then he gets a ding on his phone and it is Tom Walsey basically giving him the thumbs up. So he did what he needed to do.
Yep.
So, all right, next scene, we're back on the trading floor at Pierpoint. And Sweet Pea says, very good speech in the sense that it falsely convinced people that they fully considered something. Rishi says, can you ever really buy a word that comes out of that cunt's mouth? So Anraj then says to Sweet Pea, a couple of messages on the internal messenger say that we are getting bought by something called Al-Miraj. So they had not necessarily heard, or I guess Al-Miraj had not yet heard that this was happening. Rishi says,
even though everyone was reacting in that giant meeting room, like rumor has we're getting sold to the Gulf.
Yeah.
So
Al-Miraj maybe just like is not.
I think Al-Miraj is very sweet, but maybe not the sharpest tool in the shed.
Maybe. So Rishi says those rumors, again, back to just like his dialogue is, we're so excited by the way, we're talking to him in like half an hour. But anyway, says, fuck, those rumors are getting louder than skeletons fucking on a tin roof. He then gets a ding from Harper, who messages him and says, come into the office tomorrow and we're going to talk next steps. H. And you can see people.
She says excited. H.
Excited H, yes. By the way, everyone is still in their attire from the night before. So you see a woman like this like sparkly sequin ball gown. Anraj is in his like
stumbling
tuxedo.
and drunk. Because remember, these people have been up all night, like getting trashed in the office, thinking that this was, I keep saying this, thinking this was it. Thinking it was all over.
Yep. So Rishi at this point now is like, I have a plan. I am going to be saved by Harper. So he then comes on over the hoot saying, paging that Italian geezer, we've reached the 9th circle of your cunting inferno, having Arabs bid for your services. Now I finally know what those IG, so investment grade baddies, feel like.
No. Instagram. When he says IG baddies, he's actually throwing a dig at Sweet Pea, who's the OnlyFans thing, like getting paid.
I thought it was investment grade. Okay, it's so funny. Anyway, he does say IG. It's normally IG when you and I talk. It's always IG baddies. It's investment grade.
Yeah, no, it's IG baddies. That's what, and he's used that phrase, that derogatory phrase before of like IG baddies. So Italian geezer, obviously Dante, the author of Dante's Inferno. Okay, we got that. So he puts his coat on, walks out, then says, I hope you'll all enjoy feeling your flesh sear in the hell you've created for yourselves. So Dante's Inferno is about the journey through obviously like all of the circles of hell.
Yeah.
And he says, good fucking morning, as in like goodbye, and walks out. And by the way, this is not the end of this scene, but I do think it's funny that there was this joke. There was this really persistent joke in like the early Fin meme world of several years ago about the idea of coming into work in a tuxedo, resigning, and like mic dropping and walking off. And it's funny because everyone's in formal attire because of what happened. So Rishi is kind of playing this out, if you will. This, I'm coming into work in a tuxedo in like a business casual world, resigning and walking off. And it's going to be this grand exit. But instead, we get this off-camera thing where someone says, your jokes are lead, mate. Fuck off. So it's someone else has taken up Rishi's mantle as the off-camera dialogue, saying like, you don't.
I love that. That's so smart. I love that. So then as he's like walking off the trading floor, he gets to the elevator. And by the way, like Sweet Pea and Al-Miraj turn around and they smile, like actually that he's like walking off. I think they're actually kind of maybe proud of him. I don't know.
So it's funny.
What was your read on
I
that?
actually think that there's a multitude of readings that I had on this the first time versus the second time. I like them laughing and smiling at each other as he makes his grand exit. The first time I saw it, they're like, good old Rishi, like still, you know what I'm saying? Still a Spitfire all the way through to the end.
Funny, that was my reading now, even like having seen it 3 times, but no,
I had
you're
a
right.
very different read the second time through.
Because they know what's coming. You are okay. Yep. But anyway, so he walks off the floor, he goes to the elevator, hits the down arrow from the 8th floor, but he then says, "What the fuck am I doing?" And he's clearly so nervous.
Correct.
Like, but also like it's funny again. Like you like see like a little bit of the humanity in him.
100%.
And so like again, he has all this bravado, and that was the whole thing from that other episode.
Yes.
It says all this bravado, but he's still like
I'm
it's
doing
masking.
it so they won't run me over.
Yeah.
Like it's and he is terrified. Now, not to like put too fine a point on it, but it is not like he has formally submitted his resignation.
Fair.
It seems well
He could
within
still come back.
Rishi's world
Yes.
to tell everyone to fuck off, storm off the trading floor, and
Fair.
come back 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
So like,
so he is not exactly.
but it is implied that he is leaving the firm.
Yeah. All right. So next scene, we now are in Leviathan Alpha's office, and we see Otto Must in there. And he's literally there. Harper and Petra come in. He says, "Am I here to mediate something? I feel like Howard Smith. You are Buckley and you're Vital. No, both Buckleys probably. Hopefully." He then smiles and he looks at them both. Petra says, "We want this to be amicable. You have made a handsome ROI on your initial seed investment, and we've outperformed the market by 8%. Harper says you will have your capital back plus your 8% in return, and we will be fully untethered from your fund and oversight." Otto says, "This sounds rather final, doesn't it? Where are we on the Pierpoint short?" Petra says, "We took profit." Harper kind of looks disappointed, but
She doesn't really meet anyone's eyes. Like,
yeah,
she
she's sort of
is
like, but
not
she's in
chiming in.
agreement and like a united front with Petra. And so Otto says, "When? Why did you take profit?" Petra says, "Less fees to Goldman, and it wasn't our most lucrative trade." Harper is like looking at Otto though, as Petra is saying this. Otto says, "At one point in the middle of the night, you were making $300 million on that trade. Hundreds of millions of dollars gone, poof, like snowflakes on a carburetor." Harper, "Is this acceptable to you? We had a sure thing here, didn't we?" And Harper says, "It is, amicably." Otto says, "Do you know what you could have paid yourselves had you landed this plane on this trade?" Petra says, "We do. We'd like to amicably remind you that you have made money being in business with us in the final reckoning. We appreciate your initial seed investment." And Otto then says a quote. He says, "Hide not thy poison with such sugared words. Well, in this case, in good conscience, I can't be in business with someone who seems comforted by the casual slide to mediocrity. That is the hallmark of modern life." Otto then looks at Harper and says, "I really thought I'd found a spark. As ever, I wish you the best." And he walks out the door. So
I am so confused.
me too. That is exactly how I felt because, okay, back to the prior episode.
Back to 4 hours prior. It is
Yes.
what, 8, 9 a.m. in the morning? I don't know what
Yes.
time he was fishing and what time he got into but let's say it's 1 p.m. in the afternoon. It is still the same day. Al-Miraj has not actually announced that they are acquiring. There's rumors, so it has probably come back up. But
Yes, so now it should have recovered. So thank God they took their profit because otherwise
the question is when did they take profit?
But she says last night, didn't she? Hold on, where did it go?
She says last night, but just physically, the actual mechanics of like calling up someone at Goldman and saying, "Get us out." Even whenever that happened, they sold at 103
Yeah.
or 93.
They should have made
or
$300 million.
something like that.
The
I
only
don't
way
care.
they wouldn't have made money is if they hadn't sold. So the fact that they sold is why they would
But
have
I
made
don't
money.
think the stock price is back up to 93. There's just no chance that they made.
Right. There's no chance it's back
chance
there.
that they didn't ton it
But they,
on this
but
trade.
they got out of the trade before, before the
but
rumors.
it's just not clear, right? Like if the Barclays rumors did it, because originally they were going to cover because of Michael Stone coming into the office. They don't even, theoretically, Al-Miraj is inside info that Otto has that they don't have. So where they were covering was because Rishi gave her the inside info of Michael Stone walking in.
Yes.
So it was Barclays that's going to buy him. Remember, though,
But then there was the no more bailouts.
Lord Norton
Yes.
put the headlines out. They should have tonned it
They
on
should have still made
I'm
$300
trying
million.
to run through every conceivable thing.
The only way they wouldn't have is if she didn't take profit and there was now the so it would
And
have
if
been
the
the
market
opposite.
has gotten wind of the Al-Miraj thing, which hasn't fully come to pass.
Yeah.
So I am so confused. Even if they didn't make $323 million
They
on
should have made
this,
a F ton.
100 million would have been great. Like anything.
The share price did not go up.
8% is not what they made on this by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
So I just am so confused. And listen, they make it seem like Petra had this change of heart and panicked and got them out. But you can't,
also, that was what Harper wanted them to do.
But you also can't erase the trade. It's not because it was like, oh, I'm nervous about we're on shaky legal ground here. You can't be like, hey, let's pretend we never had the short.
Let's the short.
Yeah, you can't just be like, let's
they made
scratch
money.
the ticket. They made money no matter what, and they made a fortune.
Yeah.
So even if it wasn't the full freight of what they could have made, it's not 8%. There's just no way in the universe.
But I also, again,
the laws of physics
what
apply.
Harper wanted them to do was to take profit on the short, and that is what she did. So I'm like, wait a second. She actually did, and she's like, I had a wobble. The wobble would have been doing nothing. The wobble would have been not getting out, and then the share price recovers after. It should have been like, did you take profit? And they should have been like, no, we did not. Yes, we took profit, but we didn't make any money.
Correct.
That's what it should have been.
Correct.
That's what it should have been.
Yeah.
So, but yes.
But again, the Al-Miraj rumors would have had to have gotten out and be public knowledge. And he is indicating that that is not public knowledge.
Oh, but I thought that it was from the prior scene, but regardless, okay.
I think there's like rumors swirling, right? But I don't think it's, because remember, the last headline.
Said it's skeletons on a tin roof. Yeah, you're right. Okay. But regardless, I mean, the share price, like, back to like the Lehman thing, right? They're like, it needs to go up or we're going to be sold for $1. Like,
it's not $1, and it's also not 93 or 103 or wherever they sold.
Right.
So it just, there has to be, if she was like, listen, we could have made $300 million. We ended up making 100 because whatever, like we didn't get out.
Again, the inside info was that there was going to be the sale.
Right.
So like sell now.
Right.
Like, so that was what they wanted to do. So they did the thing that should have, you know what I mean?
I'm 100% with you.
Yeah.
This scene had me so confused. I watched it twice. It didn't become any clearer.
No, we've watched it, 3 times. Nope. Actually, maybe 4 when you count the fact that I've literally watched it like last year.
That's true.
Anyway, okay. So Petra then says, as Otto has now left, she says, sorry, I went behind your back at a full fucking wobble. I felt the floor beneath me move with the legality of how you got us into this Pierpoint short, okay? I panicked. Harper says, I forgive you. I'm not going to punish you for reacting that way. Thanks for owning it. Petra then is like, thank you for being honest with me, because she's like trying to, but Harper says, didn't use any inside information to take profit on the, like, but you did.
That's what I'm saying. So she says, didn't use any inside information on our take profit level. So I hope you'll forgive me too.
They did, but that's what Harper wanted her to do, and that is what Otto wanted them to do.
And then maybe they didn't, and then wrote it back up, but then they still got out. Yeah.
Yep. They both laugh, and Petra says, fucking hell. Harper adds, no unilateral decisions. I meant that. I've been making decisions for myself for a long time, and I'm ready for something new. Petra says, no unilateral decisions, and then they both smile. Petra says, who knows? Maybe reciprocity really is the key to a happier life. Harper smiles and says, yeah, but also like looking like she maybe believes that at this point. Like
I totally disagree. This reminds me so
it.
much of the scene earlier with Robert and Yasmin, where they're both like, it's us against the world. And they're saying the things that they wish they believed. Just like I think Eric is saying the things that he wished he believed.
But also like, who's the partner you're going to choose?
Correct. And I think that Harper is paying lip service to, it's you and me, Petra. Yeah, I'm so excited to do this together. I can't wait. It all reminds me of this scene that is one of my favorite scenes in television of all time that I'm going to cry just thinking about. It is that scene in Girls where Adam Driver and Lena Dunham, Adam and Hannah are sitting together in that diner. She's pregnant. He's decided they're going to get back together and they're going to get married and raise this child together. And they're talking about like, whose apartment are we going to live in? And like, what's our married life going to look like? And they're both sobbing as they have this conversation, knowing they're saying these words, but they could never actually be together because like, it's just not going to work. Like we can't do it. And they never actually show them break up. They never show them agree to part ways.
Is this the theory? Because I actually have not. I only watched the first season. I need to go back and watch
Oh
the
my
whole
God,
thing.
I'm so sorry if I just ruined it for you. But
I don't care. No, I like spoilers. I've told you, I'm the person that will read the last page of the book to find out what happened. I literally with Game of Thrones, I was like reading ahead to be like, they don't kill off Tyrion, do they? Like, please don't. I love him. Like, don't kill him off.
I think the penultimate episode of Girls. And it is this whole thing of, the whole arc of the show is you're supposed to think like Adam and Hannah are supposed to end up together. And they dangle that in your face in the last season of like, has he really found his true love with someone else? Or is he going to come back to her and realize it was her all along? And they have this moment where they open the door to that future where the whole will they, won't they, Ross and Rachel, Robert and Yasmin.
One of
like,
the same of the 19 different plots.
There's
in
one,
every
there's
single,
one
yeah.
plot in history, right? Exactly. I said this to you last night at dinner, and now Kristen's seeing everything through this lens.
Yes.
But so they open this door and kind of show you this window into what it could be. They're showing you a window into what it could be if Harper and Yasmin. Not Harper and Yasmin. If Petra and Harper.
I love the slip of the tongue though, because again, they are the central, and I did see the writer say the central like
love story
is Harper and
and
Yasmin. But sorry, continue.
Although it's funny, I wanted to believe that. I actually had a different feeling at the end of this episode, and I want to talk about that. But so they just
Harper
open,
and Eric.
Yeah, they open this window to, hey, what could the world be like if we all became the best versions of ourselves? And they show you that it just doesn't, it rings false. And so I think that this and that scene in the car with Yaz and Robert are the same scene.
Yeah.
Differently.
Oh, I love that.
It's us against the world. We're
Mhm.
partners. No unilateral decisions, right? We're doing this together. And they're both saying these words.
Because it's like they could be happy, but like, is that what they want? Yeah. No, I love that. All right, so the next scene, we're back with Robert and Yaz, and they're driving to Henry's country estate. It is this insane castle. Like, it is.
It looks like Buckingham Palace,
yes.
but in a countryside estate. It looks bigger than.
It's bigger than freaking Buckingham, and
it
it's
looks
nicer.
bigger than the Vanderbilt mansion in the freaking Biltmore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, what is this place? Who is the location scout who found this house?
Yeah.
I was blown away.
Robert says, fucking hell, and Yasmin's like, bit much. So they're driving up, and it's, again, this, like, sweeping, I mean, beautiful. But Henry then walks out. So they drive up to the castle. Henry walks out to greet them. He gives Robert a hug first, then goes over to Yasmin, and they kind of, like, they say hi, you know.
They, like,
and they're
awkwardly
sort of, like,
shake hands with the wrong hand, you know? Like,
yeah. And so again, and as the interaction with Henry and Yaz is taking place, like, you can see Robert looking at this being like, should I be threatened? Like, is this like what's going on here? But still thinking like he still has a shot with Yaz, that this is like.
And he has a shot with Henry.
Yes, because he's trying to raise money from them. Mm-hmm. So they walk in together. And again, like I literally just like the scenes of this castle are insane. And as they go inside, Yasmin is looking at a picture. And it's some club photo from like Oxford, 1985, with Lord Norton's name there next to her dad, C. Hanani. Henry is sitting down in this, again, huge room. And Henry says, Al-Miraj Holding Company just bought Pierpoint. It's all over the wires. They all then go to sit down. And Henry says, I was given a bit of Pierpoint stock as a sweetener when they landed the IPO. Might make a bit of prosciutto money if it continues to rally. Robert says, I haven't told them yet, but I'm not going back. Yasmin's like, what is prosciutto money? And Henry says, you know, the money for cold cuts, odds and ends, a couple $1 million, prosciutto money. Like, this is so insignificant to him that a couple $1 million is money for cold cuts.
Not only that, so two things. Robert has just said, I'm not going back to right? Like, he has just announced that. Yasmin doesn't even react to that.
Yeah.
She's just like, wait, what did you mean by that? Remember how Yaz and Robert have not been on the same page about food. It's battered sausage and it's chips from the gas station.
Yeah.
For Henry, prosciutto is a high end, right? He's not saying it's ham.
Yeah. It's cold cut money. It's prosciutto money.
It's prosciutto money.
Yeah.
And it's a couple $1 million, which Robert would, lose his mind for. So I don't think it's an accident that he talks about it through the lens of food, which has been, it's funny, right? I think this constant theme, I have certainly observed this in my relationship with my husband. I don't know if you've observed this in your relationship with your husband. There was a trend on social media a while back where it was like, you know, these showing pictures of women poking fun at themselves, being like, they're on a tear, they're super mad about something or whatever, and they're like totally frustrated and they're just ranting, and their husbands are like giving them all their favorite snacks.
Oh yeah,
and they're like,
that's so
coming
mean.
down. You're not you when you're hungry, right? Like the old Snickers thing.
Yeah.
But it's the old adage was always like the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. But I actually think it's like the way to
opposite.
a woman's heart is through her. Like keep her fed.
Keep her fed.
And it's like this.
Do not let a woman get hangry.
Correct, right? And it's such this like
This is
nurturing.
my kids too. Like it's like my children will have these meltdowns. I'm like, feed them.
Yeah.
Get food into their system now. It's like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think thinking about that through the language of like, you know, taking care of Yasmin. Who's feeding Yasmin? I think. And what are they feeding her? Are they feeding her Runard and oysters? Are they feeding her battered sausage?
Yep. So at this point now, they're all sitting down. And Henry says to Robert, you know, I'm a big fan of Pierre and Little Labs. I guess Pierre is probably the founder of Little Labs. Who knows, whatever. So he says, I guess I just never saw it as a scalable thing due to legality. Robert says, people are thinking too short term. Henry says, well, and then he leans in to get some tea, says, word of advice. If they make you CFO, don't IPO too early, obviously referencing the disaster that was the Lumi IPO, which kicked off the season. So the butler then is there. Again, they have a butler. And Henry says, currently, I am financing a speaker circuit for public business failures. He says, an area where business leaders can be vulnerable and learn from each other's mistakes. Robert's like, for $1,000 a head. And Yaz then is now jokingly, almost kind of like she's then flirting a little bit, but she's like jokingly like, clearly, but she's making fun of him, right? So she's like, clearly, Henry is transcended the material possessions, right? And then she kind of like facially coughs. She's like, sorry, can you not hear me over there? Signaling, again, how big and like massive this castle is. And Henry then, back to speaking to Rob, says, he knows, again, Rob, how powerful a recentering can be because referencing the ayahuasca trip that they both went on. Henry continues and says, I've been speaking to the prime minister about contesting a marginal seat in the next election. I want to dedicate my life to public service. You keep bending my ear for a few more hours, I may have no choice but to back your venture. He smiles and then he says, something about you, Robert. Again, this is Henry talking. Something about you, Robert, makes me want to kill you or love you. Not exactly sure which yet. Because, by the way, like they did have that relationship at the very beginning.
Remember them
which was
fighting?
Like, yes,
Yeah.
And by the way, like they never actually did this, but there was like place with like, you know, Robert and Yaz were both in bed with the CEO. And there was some questions about like his sexuality. So I
didn't think about that.
I mean, there was one point, I never even brought it up in the thing, but like, I don't know. I mean, like, again, I don't think that was at all what they were going with, but whatever. They did have, it was almost like a brotherly like relationship at one point early on. He was Henry's handler. Like that's how he was introduced to us. But anyway, so he smiles, he takes a sip of tea and he says, are you guys staying? Rob looks at Yaz and then he looks back at Robert. And Robert says, well, we don't want to impose. Henry says, you came all this way, stay the night for God's sakes. Yaz is like, I mean, do you have the space? Because obviously referencing just how massive this castle is. Henry says, I've already had rooms made up. Haven't we, Stevens? Again, referencing the butler who replies, yes, sir. Robert then looks at Yaz and says, we can stay. Because she obviously is now said that she's on board. And he then replies, I'm actually glad you said that. I'm exhausted. Basically, I don't want to drive back. So Robert looks at Yaz and he says, we can stay. And Henry says, separate rooms, right? Because he's now trying to figure out, are they together?
Correct.
And then he's like, you know, joking. He says, it's my uncle's 60th birthday tomorrow. Supper, then shooting on Sunday. We'd be delighted to have you stay with us. Yaz says, I wouldn't have anything to wear. And then again, this is obviously going to be important later in the episode, but Henry says, nonsense. He knows her size. And a friend of mine at Net-a-Porter owes me a few favors, so we can send someone to London to pick something up. And the butler's like, absolutely, sir.
I do think, however, that what we are seeing here over the course of this is Yasmin, I don't actually think she's flirting. She's being pretty hard on Henry.
But I feel like that's how some people flirt, is they basically make fun of people.
I can see that, but I think it's just being so over the top about like, you're so wealthy. I think she's trying on the hat. She's saying, Henry's transcended all material possessions now, right? Obviously sarcastically.
Yes.
But I do think she's trying on the hat of what it would be like to transcend all material possessions.
Yeah.
And it rings, I think it's why it doesn't come across as that effective flirtation. It comes across grating because she's trying to say these things to make fun of him when she like lived this life up until like 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And so it just doesn't, it rings false.
Yep.
And I think it's like the lady doth protest too much. Why are you making such a fuss all the time about all of his wealth if you didn't want it?
Oh, yes. I 100% agree with that. Because that's the thing. It's like you can see her just be like, holy shit. Like she didn't know. Like she knew.
She knew. She's probably been here before they dated for a whole while.
Oh, no, I
She
didn't
said
get that
Somerset.
sense.
She was like, yep, this is his place. Like, I got the feeling she'd been there before.
Oh, I didn't. I got the feeling that this was the first time she was seeing it. And she was realizing just how wealthy he was. Because, for example, right, in the prior episode when he was saying that he was going to sell out of his stock.
That's before they were dating. Remember, they were like in a relationship.
Again, I got the sense that she didn't realize the magnitude of the wealth and status that he had, and that this is all bringing it even more to light.
Maybe.
That was how I took it, but we've talked about this before in the sense that in the UK, status is so bigger, and it's like money alone is not going to make you high status. In the US, you become high status when you've made money.
Right.
So like, again, that's why it's so funny with Robert. It's like the US is perfect for him because he can like become what he never could become in the UK. So anyway, I thought that she's like, holy shit, I basically could marry in and be like a queen. Again, it's like Meghan Markle. Like I could be marrying into this family that is so much more than just like.
Well, I think that's what she ultimately.
Oh, yes.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. All right. Now, the next scene, it opens with like these, again, just there you see these regal paintings, again, like you would see of kings and queens hanging in a castle. It's like almost like Harry Potter-like. And
well, it's also like what was in the cricket lounge.
Yeah. Uh-huh. But it's in her room. It's in her bedroom. Like next you see that it's not her like in that room anymore. She's now literally on a bed. She gets a knock on the door and it's Henry. He says hi. He's so glad she came. He says that he had wanted to call her, but he wasn't sure what to say. And he's so happy she called, blah, blah, blah. And he then says that, he wants to say sorry. He treated people as chattel whose value and utility he only saw in relationship to himself, which, by the way, goes back to like Maxim talking about her dad. He never saw people as people, blah, blah, blah. And
Yasmin, who said, I'm really good at making people think that I love them.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So she says she's jaded by people apologizing. Nobody's perfect. But she also tells him that she's not buying the rebrand. The butler then comes in, and what is he bringing to her? It's the Renard. Am I pronouncing it right? It's that fancy champagne and Twiglets, which I don't know what that is, whatever. But it's just, he is bringing the exact type of
the
food
exact thing
and
that
drink
she joked that she wanted.
Yes. And so anyway, Henry then says, it's good to see you. They have a moment. And then he walks away. But by her reaction, like, again, you can see that there is something there in how they are interacting with each other and how they are talking to each other.
He still very much has feelings for her, and he has opened the door, but he is not trying to barge through it.
Mm-hmm.
He is like, it's like with a wounded dog. You leave food out for it, and you know what I'm saying? And eventually it comes out of its corner and it doesn't bite you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The next scene is,
amazing.
Amazing. All right. So we are back in London, and it actually flashes to London, so you can tell that you're out of the country. Rishi then, he is in the Leviathan Alpha office, and he says—
the same room where Sweet Pea had interviewed with Harper. We have seen this room before.
Yes. And he says, I'm so glad you had the sense to hire me. I always felt like we had a bond, obviously him and Harper. The type of people who aren't for everyone. And Harper says, but we are definitely for some, right? Harper then says, for my own sanity, when exactly did you and Eric decide to fuck me? And Rishi says, well, that's water under the bridge. Harper says, exactly, water under the bridge. Indulge me then. When? Rishi says, the reception at my wedding. Harper says, your wedding. Thanks. By the way, sorry I didn't send a card. Rishi then says that Eric had scuttled over to him and said, she's got to go. Actually, I think what he said is the psychopath's got to go. He was probably so loaded too. And Harper says, do you think I'm a psychopath? And Rishi's now kind of like, awkwardly, I don't know. Does it matter? They walk among us. And Harper says, I guess emotional attachment probably makes a good traitor. Opportunism, predatory instinct. Do you consider yourself a predator, Rishi? And we then see Sweet Pea walk in. And Harper says, she's going to be working for us. And by the way, he already knows that she had said that they don't have the budget to hire more than one person, basically. And so Sweet Pea sits down, and Rishi is like, what are you doing? Are you trying to humiliate me or something? And Harper says, I wanted to give Sweet Pea the pleasure of watching someone treat you with as little respect as you treat them. And Rishi says she's fucking brass, and basically is like she does OnlyFans. Harper says, I'm well aware of Sweet Pea's extracurriculars. I love a woman who doesn't leave money on the table. And then Harper then says, let's be straight. You are not without charm, but you're a punter, a dinosaur. There's no room for you in the modern market. A machine could do your job. They already do. And Sweet Pea then
Sweet Pea says that.
Oh, Sweet Pea says that. Sweet Pea then also says, time's up. Rishi is getting increasingly worried because he obviously is in dire straits financially. And he's like frantic. He's like, I know I've made mistakes. I can admit it. I didn't want to come in here and tell you how to do your job. That's not my job. I'm an execution guy. You always need an execution guy. Harper then says, we have an execution guy. So Rishi is, again, clearly getting more and more desperate, realizing what is happening. And he says, please, you have no idea what you're doing to me here. Sweet Pea says, respectfully, you make it hard to give a fuck. He then said, it's like, no, please, listen, you need to understand, I need liquidity. And they both look at him like, not my problem. And then as he's walking out, he has trouble opening the door, the way the Sweet Pea had trouble opening the door, and she helps him leave. And as he's walking out, he sees Al-Miraj, who they have hired as the execution guy. He says, for fuck's sake, and he leaves.
And Al-Miraj, by the way, just smiles to himself as Rishi storms past. So it turns out Al-Miraj, who I had kept thinking, harbored this hope that Rishi really loved, had some affection for him. You know, that scene where he's on ecstasy, where he's like, you were bullied because you were bullied as a child, trying to understand him, whatever.
Yeah.
But It turns out he did not harbor any love for Rishi and is happy to take his revenge.
Yeah.
I also think it's really interesting that during this whole scene, we have Harper sitting there eating from a bowl of grapes. She's
I didn't even notice that.
Sitting there. And also, you know, it's funny because we think about weddings. This episode to me was so evocative of all of the court espionage from Game of Thrones, and I've made a bunch of those references. And talking about her finding out that the minute that Rishi stabbed her was at his wedding, right? That was her red wedding. And she is like the Starks taking her revenge on Rishi. Like, that's what this feels like. There's also this very, you know, we've evoked, obviously, Caesar getting stabbed in the back with a true brute, right? It's very, I think of someone eating from a bowl of grapes as like a Roman emperor eating from a bowl of grapes, and like these scenes that you have in like times of old. I think, you know, there's something so stone cold about someone who can eat while
they kill
murdering someone. Exactly. Like, to have the stomach. So I think it's like she has the stomach to do this
which
to
we
Rishi.
know. And she is 100% a psychopath. Now, I don't know the technical definition of a psychopath, but like,
I think it's interesting because and I don't know if you had, but I just wanted to call out that you were the one who said Eric has the realization at the wedding when he calls her and she's somewhere or whatever. But they don't ever show this interaction between Rishi and Eric. So your suspicions were 100% confirmed from that.
Yeah. Okay. So I love this next scene. So we're back in the house or I should say the castle. And you see just the newspaper first. So it says, first headline is, "The government switch up. Chancellor's resignation marks a turning point in the government's dynamics." And the next one says, "Adekunle tipped to succeed chancellor." And then there's a quote that says, "No more bank bailouts. It's time to put the people on the street first." So we then see Lord Norton, and he's sitting there and he's looking at his handiwork when Yaz walks in and he says, "You're up early. Henry told me we'd have the pleasure of your company tonight." And Yaz is like, "Well, it's difficult to sleep in this house. Again, it's like so big." He says that he agrees, and he never has fully felt comfortable in it. "It was here before me. It will be here after." He then gestures to her to take a seat. But by the way, it's like this is sort of symbolic of something obviously greater, that it's whatever.
The institution.
Yeah, exactly. Yaz says, "Your paper keeps buying my pictures." And he says, "My news editor." She tells him to stop hiding behind the editors. He says, "What? You think that it's a distancing device I use to comfort myself when terrorizing people?" She says, "When are you going to print the Alondra stuff?" Again, the pregnant worker who was going to the press to try to out that possibly Yasmin had some involvement in her father's death. "I mean, you can't sit on it much longer." He tells her that basically that this woman won't be appeased. She has a child. Like, what would you have me do? Blah, blah, blah. Yaz says, "Well, I want to take care of her." And Lord Norton then gets up and changes the subject. He says, "I used to hate this house in my bones. I had 3 older sisters my father never cared for. He was obsessed with the execution of the state and what he bequeaths and to whom. Then finally I was born. A boy. Hurrah. He said, doted on by women. How fey. He hated me too. He bred a particular strain of misandry in me," basically like hatred of men, "which has led me to be maybe rather regressive. I have the view that a feminine touch built into a family saves it from itself. Perhaps it's even misogynistic to say, but I found the capacity for self-destruction to be more of a male trait." Yasmin then says, "I think people tend towards it anyway. It's not gendered. And I don't think that the key of Henry's salvation is in some random girl." He then says, "Your unwarranted public shunning for your privilege shouldn't blinker you from your own exceptionality. You are not a random girl." And this, again, like, is everything that she has ever wanted. He is this fatherly figure who is now telling her, "You're not some random, like, untalented girl." He says, "May I speak candidly for a moment?" Yaz says, "Of course." He says,
and she has tears in her eyes now.
Again, I almost did. He says, "I always knew your father was a predator. There was a number of disciplinary hearings at Oxford that he only got out of because of the quality of the lawyers at the time." He then pauses and says, "You know that has nothing to do with you." She looks at him, and again, she is like emotional. Her father in the prior episode told her she was talentless, and here he is basically telling her that she is essentially like spectacular. He says that has nothing to do with you. Do you understand? It has nothing to do with you at all. He then goes over and he gives her the fatherly hug. And it's, again, it is fatherly. It is not creepy, right? It goes back to like what we were talking about with like Eric, when Eric, you know, sort of looked at Harper that way. And then here is this man who is, again, taking her under his wing in a totally non-sexual, in a totally fatherly way, just giving her the hug that she's always wanted from a dad.
Mm-hmm.
She says, "I'm sorry I haven't wished you a happy birthday." He says, "You just did." Then says, "I'm fiercely protective of my family, and I always use my non-insubstantial power to protect them. But then again, life is about the family you choose." He nods. And again, like, I am getting tears in my eyes because like this is where she sort of like has this realization that if she chooses Henry, if she marries into this family, but that she can choose this family. She can go from this horrible like family to this family, or possibly to the one with Robert. But the family with Robert is just not the one that she probably wants.
Yes, but when you say she's going from this horrible family to this one,
this is very true.
He is giving her what she
true.
wants, but what he is giving her that she has never had. This reminded me so much of that scene from Good Will Hunting, where Robin Williams is confronting Matt Damon, who is like throwing all this violence at him, and he's telling him that the abuse he suffered as a child is not his fault, right?
Yes.
And it is very evocative of that scene. But remember, Lord Norton is saying, I'm
blackmailing you.
I am blackmailing you into this family. So this is not, hey, listen, you've escaped the clutches of your father. Not only that, he also was side by side with this man while he was a sexual predator. So this is basically Epstein's bestie telling the daughter of the Epstein figure, this isn't your fault, I'll protect you. So in a way, he is what Yasmin always, she just wants this very simple thing. She wants to be told she's special and loved, and wants everything to be perfect and everything to be nice and everything to be wrapped up with a bow. And she had these moments where she rebelled against her dad. But remember, she always went back to him because of the money, because of all these things. And finally, she kills him. And now she's looking for that surrogate to fill this. And so Lord Norton, to me, is just a wolf in much nicer clothing of a sheep than her dad was. He is part and parcel of the exact same institution that allowed her father to do the things that he did and whitewashed them and covered them up and laundered them.
Yes, that's so true. Yeah, I mean, it's it's funny. The prior episode was titled Useful Idiot, and it's like there's so many, and it comes back obviously later, but there's so many instances of like, who is the useful idiot, right? Is it Robert? Is it Eric? Is it Yaz here?
Yes,
that
it
was
was
exactly
Yaz.
here. Is it Yaz? And so it's so interesting. But you're 100% right. He knows exactly what to say to get what he wants, and he is getting what but it's like he knows how to break into her. And so you're right. Like he is using his it's just he's a better reader. It's like back to Wilhelmina. Like he's just like a better reader of
He's a better politician.
He's a better politician. Yep.
She walks out of this room and she goes, and there is this very hitting you over the head with a split staircase.
Yes.
There is a staircase that goes in two directions.
Yes.
And it is, I feel like there have been scenes or whatever. It's like a character leaves something and they go and knock on a door, and whose door did they knock on, right?
Yeah.
And so where Yaz now is, after this emotional scene with Lord Norton, is we're seeing it played out for us in terms of how this scene is depicted. Yeah. Is she going to choose door A, which is, a life with Henry's family, who is going to protect her and is going to do whatever?
Prosciutto money.
Right. And who is going to give her the things that old Yaz was longing for? Or has she become new Yaz, who has forsaken material possessions, who has forsaken all of these like worldly aims for true love with Robert, where they can just go off and be happy, right? And so the camera starts to follow her, and she goes and knocks on someone's door, and she has this bright, happy look in her eyes, like giving us the feeling that she has now made her decision.
Yes.
And
it's Robert.
It's Robert. So all she has to do is say, should we go somewhere? And he reads the invitation for exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And it's, should we mistake the open road for freedom? Like, are they now going to go be free together?
And then they go and they walk the grounds, and they have sex on a bench, and there's this amazing jazz music, playing. Again, they sleep together.
Amazing jazz music. I actually hated the music.
Again, I didn't like the music, but I liked it in the context of this scene.
The montage they do.
I liked the, again, I hate jazz. Like, I objectively hate
not a fan
jazz.
either, yes.
But I loved it in this scene because it's like the chaos of it.
It's very beautifully done.
Yes. So it was not so much, again, I literally hate jazz. But they whatever, they sleep together. She says, I love you. He replies, I love you too. And I thought that was very important that she's the one that said it first.
And she says it like 3 times.
Yeah. Then the next scene.
But she says it, but she looks devastated, not happy. They have this final coming together.
Yeah.
But instead of looking overjoyed at the end of all of it, she looks totally crushed. And
because
we hear her say, because
I actually do think she loves him.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the reason she looks crushed is her next words off camera are, do you love me? So it's like, wait a minute, you just said I love you to each other. You already know you love. What? Where is she now?
Yes. And so now she is in Henry's room asking, do you love me? He responds, where have you been? She says, exploring. Got lost in the grounds, fucked Robert. How have you been? Just nonchalant.
She's just honest.
Happened.
She's just like, yeah.
He says, yeah, feeling centered. She goes, don't lie to me. He says he's been struggling. He finally admits, he says, I can't feel the joy. I hope it passes. And Yaz says, I see past this costume, Henry. All of it. The self-searcher shit. He says, he has this like crazy story about like hitting rock bottom, sharing needles with some bums, like doing smack, like after his ayahuasca trip. And he says, he thought that if he made the higher consciousness shit a cornerstone of his personality, it might help him through the stuff he's going to. She then tells him that it's escapist nonsense and then says, we should be practical. And from there, it then...
What does that make you think of? Desire is practical.
Yes.
This was the confirmation I was looking for, that my read of Eric was correct.
Yes.
Everything has been steering Yasmin towards desire is practical.
Mm-hmm. And so from here, we then flash to the next scene. And so it's this super fancy dinner, right? It's like a state's dinner, head of state. Lord Norton turns to Robert and is like, oh, you're more handsome than I am.
By the way, this is Lord Norton's 60th birthday. For the first time ever, hearing that someone is turning 60, I was like, that's not far off for us.
I know.
Like, we're closer to Lord Norton than we are to Yasmin at this point. Like, this is absolutely, and I was like, am I gonna look like that when I'm 60? I thought I was like 80.
No, yeah. I mean, again, like health, like AI health stuff catch up. Anyway, so Robert then gives the smile to Yaz. It's like this inside thing. Like he knows what just happened. They just said they love each other. He thinks he got the girl.
But she doesn't return the same smile.
Right.
She's looking wistfully at him.
Yes. Lord Norton then gets up to give a speech. And as he stands, he's like, I hate speeches and announcements unless they're in print, because he's like newspaper guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, suffice it to say, he says, being in this room now with everyone and what it will mean for the memories in this house is a gift. Basically, like, long story short, he gives this whole speech about family, blah, blah, blah. And then they all toast to the king. And as they're doing that, Henry gets up and says, sorry, I'm going to characteristically be selfish here and co-opt my uncle's birthday for my own celebration. He then makes a joke about how the biggest surprise of the night is probably that his outfit still fits. And then he says,
but also, by the way, it's not the Henry we've seen, the downtrodden, this is the charismatic, I'm on top of the world again.
Yep.
This is also we always talk about what words do to portray who you are, right? So this is Rishi using all of his bluster and banter so that people don't walk all over you. All of a sudden, Henry has his mask back.
Yes. So he then says, no, seriously. And then he takes Yaz's hand, they stand up and says, well, we have some news. She replies, we're engaged. Robert just looks at her. He had no idea. And again, the fact that she wouldn't just say something to him before that, to blindside him like that, was actually so cruel.
Saw it coming from a mile away.
Yes, but again, everyone starts clapping. And then you see him look at her, and then the room just goes where it's empty with just the two of them. So obviously they're still there, but it's just it's
kind of the first time the show has gone surreal,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It flashes back to the actual scene between Yaz and Henry.
Yes. And she says, we should be practical. So do you love me? He says yes. And then he's like, honestly, I don't know. Maybe I'm just too selfish. Do you love me? She says yes. And he smiles and says, I don't believe you. And it's so the opposite of what happened with Robert, right? It is so stark that it is this we don't love each other, but whatever. And so she says, I want commitment. I want a partner. And he looks at her confused. He's like, Yaz, you're not serious. Look at the state of me. He says, what do you want me to do? Propose? And then he realized that she might be serious, but he's still not
he's
sure.
He's going through the motions of joking about it. He pantomimes getting down on one knee haha, I do this.
Well, he's like, is this a sick joke? And so he says, you want me to get down on one knee, tell you that I'm yours forever, I'm incapable of letting you down, you're not serious. And he's like, if I asked you to marry you, you would say no. Is this some kind of sick game? Which we know that she is capable of. She did that all during season 1 to Robert. And he says, you really want to spend your life with me? She cocks her head and kind of looks at him and says, you had me at Net-a-Porter. And so we know kind of what went on behind the scenes. And as this is happening, I mean, again, he is also kind of oh my God, I just got the girl. He says, I can't believe this. I don't have a ring. You deserve a ring. She gets up and she gets her dad's ring that she got from his decomposing body. And she says, thank you, Daddy. And then she adds, Henry, I deserve everything. Because he's like, you deserve a ring. She gets the one her dad gave, is I deserve everything. But it's interesting that is the engagement ring that she's putting on. It was the one that her father gave her,
Meaning, in many ways, she is just wedded
Marrying
to
her
her
father.
dad. Correct. She is just, the institution doesn't suffer. She is perpetuating this cycle. She has chosen this. She chose her dad, effectively, after everything,
Yep.
to save herself in her mind.
Yeah.
And instead of choosing love and true happiness. Ooh.
Right. Which again, I mean, in fairness to her, like she's like, but is it actually true happiness? Like, do I want that life where like, I mean, again, it's funny. It's like the romanticization of kids. And obviously I have 4 kids, but I mean, let's be very frank. Like when you see kids, it's funny. You'll see some of these like montages of like, oh my God, my sweet child. And then it's like, I mean, again, my poor husband last night, he's home with 4 kids screaming. He's like, oh my God, like, did he get his shots today? Like there's just like poop and the kids are fighting and they're screaming and it's just like chaos. And it's like, because that is the reality.
Not only that, but we have been asking this question about Yasmin, that is she talentless or is she exceptional?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, unfortunately, she is showing us that deep down, she is not exceptional. She is no more than the worst things that she suspected about herself.
Mm-hmm.
It is not the exceptional choice to go choose this as the easy way out, if you will, right? What noble purpose is she going to serve? And maybe we will see in season 4, but like there's no nobility, there's no great journey that she has gone through to get to this point. All she is doing is saying, well, I gave it a shot.
Yeah.
Here I am back where I started.
Again, and like sort of in defense of her though, I think that there is this like view of you choose love, but then it's like, what does that get you what you think it is? Like the feeling of love in the moment, is it actually going to get you the life that you want? And I think that she basically feels like if I choose that, this is the life and I don't want that life. I want the prosciutto money.
Yes, she does. And back to Robert's first line. You're expecting something radical. You're expecting something different. All we have gotten is tale as old as time.
Yeah.
That people seek out power, privilege, and prestige.
Yeah.
You know, in lieu of the hard-fought victories, right?
Yep. So then we're back at the dinner. It's going back and forth between these. And a song comes on. And this is where I started to tear up. And it was like, you know, it's the last goodbye. I can't rely on a dime a day love that doesn't go anywhere. So it's all, I mean, look, they're hitting you over the head with it. But again, the song to me,
they do a montage. And I love a montage of all the Yasmin and Robert scenes of, which is funny because I told you earlier this season that I had been all throughout season 1 and 2 longing for the Ross and Rachel, will they, won't they, will they, won't they.
And I told you they would do it and they would do it well.
But I actually disagree because I feel like there were too many, you lost me. And so I was happy that they gave it its due here.
Yeah.
But it didn't have that, I had like a critique and a half, if I will, like in this last episode. And I wish that they had held that thread more solidly rather than resuscitating. Because Robert's character has done nothing all season except annoy me and not given any reason to be compelling. I don't want her to choose Robert. Because Robert feels like such a wimpy loser.
Yeah.
And I'm like, honestly.
And then they're kind of like reminding you that he's supposed to be handsome. And like Lord Norton saying, you are handsome.
Robert looks terrible. Like
he looks great after he gets the haircut.
Looks great with the fluffy hair.
Yeah. But so then they're back at the dinner and Yaz is sitting there and she says, I'm sorry. Robert says he understands. And as I said, I literally like, for whatever reason, the music does it to me, but whatever. The music keeps going. And then in the background too, it's like everyone's singing for he's a jolly good fellow. So it's kind of like contrasting with the actual song.
But it also shows you that they're not participating she's not participating in the joy of the rest of this.
No, because she's devastated because she loves Robert. She picked this for the practicality.
It's like, I keep talking about Game of Thrones, but it reminds me so much of that witch who tells Cersei, like, all your joy will turn to ashes in your mouth. Like, it is all of the things that you wanted will not ever bring you happiness, and that is your curse.
Yep. And so in the next scene, it's now the next morning. Robert is getting in his car. Yaz gets in the car with Henry to go hunt, and then it flashes to the scene again, more of the montage, with Yaz saying, I'm good at making people feel like I love them, but I don't know that I ever have loved anyone. Robert then is in the car. He smiles as he's remembering this, and then he drives off. So it's like he's over it, but it's great. And then the screen almost goes black. It's almost
it does.
The ending.
I was like, good ending.
Yes. And then there's more.
And then there's more, right? And I was like, oh, okay. I thought it had ended.
I did too the first time, and then. But yeah, we're not because we have to see what happens to the other characters.
We have to see what happens to everyone else. But I will say, I do think they leave it open to interpretation with that smile. That either it's she thought she hadn't ever loved anyone, but then she told him that she loved him. And he was like, I was the one. She does really love me and she chose this life. I don't know that
I took the other meaning that like she never loved me. This was all an act and a game and I can now get over it.
I think he knows better. I think he kind of knows
she
better.
did know. Yeah, because I think she did love him.
I think she did. But I think, to your point, they leave it open to interpretation. Either he takes solace in the fact that knowing that Yasmin has never really loved anyone but herself.
Yeah.
And or it's, but she loved him in her way.
Yep.
If she could ever love someone, it was Robert.
him. Yep. So the next scene, again, after it comes back from the fade to black, we see Eric walking in the Pierpoint office, and it says Al-Miraj Pierpoint on the front of the building.
Yep.
And
it's like when they turn it to the Gray Sloan Memorial Hospital and then they start adding more names.
But I mean, it's funny because usually if a private equity firm buys they're not going to put their name on it. It's a you know what I mean?
The whole reason they want this bank is for their image. It's for the institution. No, this was the whole thing that they were reputation laundering through this institution.
The point that I meant is that usually when you're a private equity firm, because it was like the sovereign
wealth
money.
They're not a private equity firm.
Right, but the way that they said it, it was a sovereign wealth fund.
With its private equity holdings.
Yes, because usually if it's a private equity firm that is buying something, it's a portfolio company.
Right.
The goal is never to change the name. It is not an actual merger. It is an acquisition that you are going to buy something and then ultimately sell
but that's
or
not
hold
what
on
this
for a long
is.
time.
This
No,
is buying influence.
agreed.
This is making it very clear that there's no mistaking their meaning.
No. Oh, yeah. And so Eric then was like, when the fuck did this happen? He then goes into a meeting where we see Wilhelmina and the HR guy, who is, by the way, the one on Harper's ass about her freaking transcript from season 1.
Oh, this internal HR guy. Great job casting this actor who does his best to be like the most creepily weird dude.
Yeah. But so Eric, as he walks in, he knows exactly what's happening. He says, I should have known when I stopped getting emails. Wilhelmina says, Eric. He goes, spare me the soft, touchy spiel. Just do it. He says, I get that I was a useful idiot. Which is funny because we thought that Adler was the useful idiot. He's like, I was the useful idiot. Wilhelmina says, we don't see it that way. He then says, well, how does Al-Miraj see it? The HR guy says, cuts have been more aggressive than anticipated. Our new partners fear that thinning margins in sales and trading can only be allayed by automation. New York City is the focus there. Wilhelmina says that London and Zurich are basically going to be wound up. Their offices are going to be focused on the private wealth management division and managing the assets of Al-Miraj's partners in this part of the world. He says there's no business need for you at Pierpoint now. Eric says, I presume Tom knew about this, to which Wilhelmina says, Tom didn't. He will be moved on. Al-Miraj don't agree with his lifestyle, meaning he was probably gay. And then Eric looks over to the HR guy, who is also clearly likely gay. I mean, that's what that's signaling is he's like...
I don't know that it's that. I think it's like, hey, listen, dude, this is still the head of HR, right? You can't say that someone was fired for being gay.
Oh, no. See, I didn't read that. I read it as he's sort of like, oh, shit, like I could be next on the chopping block.
If anyone finds out that I'm gay.
That's how I read that.
I didn't read that. I was like, listen, you literally just said like the most you cannot have that ever get out, right? That someone was fired for being gay.
Oh, no. It's funny. I literally took it as like, basically, he's like, I got to keep my head down.
I think that's a good additional read. I think that's entirely possible.
And so Eric then says, from Madam ESG to the mouthpiece for a state in how few moves. Wilhelmina says, come on, Eric. We both know it's all the same. Eric says, I'm head of institutional securities. I know what my contract is. And she's like, you'll be very happy with what they're paying you to break it. This is not a confrontation. It is a happy goodbye. And then the HR guy's like, you're getting $20 million over 48 months. And Eric is like, stock? And she says, no. These guys do cash.
Good deal, man.
Holy shit.
Well, yeah, head of institutional securities at a big bank to be getting paid $10 million a year.
But in cash?
In cash is great, yeah. But yeah, like a $10 million a year pay package is not out of the realm of, But I mean, it goes back to, though, for Rishi, he left the money on the table. Like it wasn't even about the money. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. This doesn't help Eric. It's nice.
Yeah.
But that's not what he wanted.
Yeah. So Eric then asked the other London desk heads no, and the HR guy says no, but the VPs and other associates are being told, this morning. And Eric says, I'll call the desk heads. And Wilhelmina's like, well, you don't have to do that. He says, it's better coming from me. And then she adds, I'll see you Thursday. And he's like, what's Thursday? And she goes, Bill's memorial. So Bill Adler has died, and he didn't even know about it, forgot about it.
Well, this is like the next day. This isn't
so he
months
died
later. This is not.
I thought it was months later.
I mean,
okay.
Listen, we don't know.
But basically, him working was what was keeping him alive.
Here's what I'm saying, right? I don't know. I don't know how long, because we got that fade to black. So that could be the passage of time. But with Eric walking into Pierpoint's offices and being like, when did this happen? It could be months later. It could be the following Monday.
Fair.
So we just don't know.
Yes.
But I mean, there is no mistaking that what Eric did killed Bill Adler.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And
it's like, again, keeping people working it gives people purpose and all that. And like, it was so.
There's that, but it's also like he wasn't just metaphorically stabbed in the back, you know?
He was the.
That was it.
Yeah. He was
dead.
Yep. But he was also the one that they pinned things on too. It was like, he was the one.
He was the tombstone for ESG.
So next scene now we see what's going on with Harper. So she is at Leviathan Alpha and everyone's like so happy. Someone's coming in. This like, new secretary, all bubbly, gives her like a jelly donut. And she just sort of takes it and she's like, ugh.
Well, also that, like there's Al-Miraj, there's Sweet Pea.
Yes.
They have this great office culture of this female-led hedge fund of the future in this bright, sunny London townhouse where it's not some cold, dark trading floor.
Yeah.
This is like, we're all together in a home. And it's like your desk is your home. Go home and do your job. They have made the House of Leviathan Alpha into a home. And everyone's so collegial. Yep. And they even say, right, hey, we're going to block the first Wednesday of every month for a desk dinner. And Harper in her leather jacket, by the way, looks like an assassin that's just hopped off her motorcycle into this. And they're like, don't worry, we blocked your calendar for the next 12 months.
Right.
And you can
feels trapped.
see the bars of the cell closing on Harper right then. And she cannot fake it for a second.
Nope. So then she looks at her Bloomberg and sees financier Jesse Bloom released from prison following 24-month sentence for tax evasion.
Yeah, so we found out at the end of the day, by the way, that it was just tax evasion for Jesse Bloom. Like, after all that, like, just a hedge fund guy not paying his taxes?
Yeah.
Well, so tell me something new.
Yep. But again, the whole point here is like, she's so happy that she's so unhappy. And so from here, we then go, and the next scene is she's going, it's raining. She sits down on a bench, and she sits next to Otto Moston. He says, I don't usually let people walk away from me twice. She says, well, if I work for you, the risk to me is huge. So the proposition is mine and mine entirely. I am going to run a short-only hedge fund. And Otto says he'll be popular. People hate shorts, right? Like that's the whole thing. Like back to we talked about like dumb money. I mean, the whole thing is like it got started with the GameStop saga with like people basically wanting to squeeze the short sellers. And so she says, hating on short selling is a political pawn. The market needs short sellers. Otto says short selling generates bad ethics PR. And she says, you're wrong. This fund will look like a white knight. We'll knuckle down on companies who might be misleading the market, committing fraud, or engaging in unethical business practices. We will find the liars. We will find the vulnerabilities and therefore what is mispriced, using a combination of forensic accounting and corporate espionage. Otto says, what gave you this idea? Harper then says, if someone had been inside Lumi, close to your godson from the jump, we would have always known that it was a short. You want information, we will be drowning in it. A lot of above board, but some is going to be essentially, from compromise and leverage. So we always have the right information and always on time. Otto says, subversive but smart, anti-fraud fraudsters. It's quite the disguise. And she says, it's only criminal if we get caught. And then she adds that she wants to run this from New York City. She thinks she's ready to go home. And then she asks if he heard from Jesse. And Otto says, I'm sure he'll throw in a couple bucks. Otto then says to her, I told him we were meeting today. He asks if you were happy. And I said, she seemed as the last time I saw her. And he said, that's no way to live. And then from here, Otto then goes on to say, Harper, don't make the mistake of thinking you'll grow up and live in a world without fear. And then he walks away.
I loved this scene because basically first of all, it's such a brilliant turning on its head of everything, right? Harper says, I'm going to profit illegally by basically finding out where anyone else is doing bad things. Because if I can point the finger at someone else and shine a light on their wrongdoings, that will keep the light. And I, of course, must be the force of good if I'm doing that. And that will be the way to launder my explicit evil. Yep. And I'm so glad that she has found this partner in Otto. I really like how they have developed his character.
I love his character.
I hope that he stays. I now can fully distinguish him from Lord Norton. I love both of their characters. I do hope that they continue into the next season. We will see. I know that Henry Muck continues, so I would assume that his benefactors do. If not. But I also thought this would have been a great end to the series.
Yep, but instead
we continue. It keeps going.
Okay, so then we go over to Eric back at Pierpoint, and he goes to the trading floor. It's all like plasticed off, but he then goes to find his desk. He sits
and he's
down.
got his baseball bat that he's carrying with him,
from
which to me, and he's still just Eric with the baseball bat and whatever. But it also reminded me of the scene with Rishi with the cricket bat. So I was like, is he going to smash this trading floor to pieces?
Yeah.
So I was like, is that what's going to happen in this scene?
But instead, he just goes to his desk. He sits, he takes the plastic off. He gets his headphones because he's going to be making calls from there. And then we see him actually start to cry. Now, it's going to come back to this a little later, but it then flashes to a scene now with Yaz. So we're now at, again, Yaz and Henry's estate. And someone comes up and says, this is a list of people who have yet to RSVP. And you see a list with like H. Stern, Barack Hussein Obama, Michelle Obama, and a whole bunch of other people.
We literally have Harper's name right above the Obamas, which is hilarious.
Yeah. Yaz looks at the list and she says, great, could you send my secretary in? We then flash to Harper, who is, walking into a store. Basically, she wants to buy some cigarettes and she gets a call from Yaz. And Yaz says, why haven't you responded to my wedding invitation? Harper says, I thought it was a courtesy invite. And Yaz says, I want you there. Harper's like, why, Yaz? When is the last time we spoke? And Yaz says, I saw you on the Forbes Under 30. Congratulations. I'm surprised that Eric gave you a quote. Harper was like, so was I. And then Yaz asked, did you see my feature in Real Country? And Harper's like, can't say I'm a subscriber. But she's in this almost like gas station convenience store bodega. So she goes and finds the issue.
Which is supposed to be like an architectural digest or like a garden and gun magazine or whatever. Yeah.
Garden and yeah. And so she basically flips through and it reads so she finds the article and it's this big picture of Yaz, again, lots of pages long. And it says a thoroughly modern lady muck. And so Harper asks, did you control the copy? To which Yaz says, of course we did. So Harper then asks, well, where is this wedding? And Yaz is like, it's here in the country. Harper asks, can you tell me about the seating chart? Because again, her whole goal is to get in with people and like start to get compromise on people. So she's like, any corporate bigwigs I like to get them drunk and start talking. And Yaz says, are you honestly saying you only come to my wedding if you sit next to someone important? Harper says, why else would I be there? But then they both smile and hang up the phone. So
I think there's also dual meaning to this. When she calls, right, Harper's like, we haven't talked in how long and you're inviting me to your wedding. So it's not like they have reconciled. They have not really been on speaking terms. I do think it's very interesting to show the two different places in their lives where Yasmin is so happy about this petty little fashion and style thing and Harper is in Forbes 30 under 30.
Yeah.
Yasmin is so thrilled with her appearance in this because this is making it for her in the world she's in now. Forbes 30 under 30, for those of you who don't know, has become a joke in and of itself because so many of the people on that list go on to end up in jail.
Sam Bankman-Fried.
Right, exactly. So I do think it's foreshadowing a much darker future for Harper where maybe things don't work out her way because we know she's setting out to become a fraudster, right? She is literally going to be trading inside information. But also on that wedding list was Aurora. So
Well, and we hear what happens to her in the next. So yeah.
But anyways, I do think that the way that they leave this scene is open to two interpretations where they could be like, hey, at the end of the day, they still have this deep friendship. I have a more cynical take on it, which is they were never really friends. Right. They really have nothing in common. And Yasmin is clinging to this idea that they are two equals in this world and they still have some tie to each other.
Desire is practical.
And but what does this desire do for Yasmin, right? I think Yasmin truly wants to be friends. Yeah. And I think this relationship has only ever suited Harper when it suits her political and business interests. And Harper has not changed a bit. And Yasmin is still laboring under this
she doesn't
false
really have any
hope
other
that
friends. But like again, that's
then we see like who she's hanging out with. So she doesn't, and so we're still in this place where Yasmin is, even in her victory, so pathetic.
Yep. Well, and I'm actually going to go to that Yaz scene before we talk about Rishi, and then actually, so we do have an intermediate scene with Rishi, which we're going to come back to. But back to Yaz, her secretary comes in, and it's Alondra, the pregnant yacht worker that we met at the beginning. So she says, the chancellor is confirmed to stay next weekend, and Yaz has put Aurora in the king's room. So we know that Aurora is now the chancellor. But basically, we find out that essentially, I mean, Charles was Jeffrey Epstein, that there were 12, 13-year-old girls on this boat. And she says, if he ever did this to you, I want you to know that you are seen. And Yasmin is like, how dare you even suggest that he possibly attacked me? Like, I am not a victim. And Alondra goes up and she hugs her. And Yasmin just starts to cry, which was kind of like what we needed to know to be like confirmation that she was abused by her dad.
Yes.
And the scene ends where she walks out and says to the butler, get rid of her, after, this woman basically is like trying to support her, and she's just like, get rid of her.
Because this woman is her only friend, the woman that she is keeping on the payroll, just like her dad kept the women that he'd abused on the payroll. She is keeping, just like she said to Lord Norton, she's taking care of her. But she's also sitting there doing cocaine with this woman.
Yeah, this was a kid who, like, by the way, the drinking thing, you can drink when you're nursing. Like, no cocaine. Like, no. Like, don't do it, period. But, like, whatever.
Yeah. And so.
Sorry. 40-year-old mom here. Like.
So, I mean, she has no friends. The one person who she has paid to be her friend tries
tries to support
actually
her.
give her like the, she tries to have the same "it's not your fault" Goodwill Hunting moment with her that Lord Norton has, but this woman has nothing to offer her because she's beneath her in society, and Yasmin is entertaining her at her expense.
Yep.
So Yasmin does not want to confront that ugly part of herself because she has married back into the same institution that in fact did abuse her as a child.
Yeah.
So she just is like, well, instead of facing that, I just have to cut this woman out.
Yep. So now from here, I'm going to go back to the Rishi scene. Again, Rishi comes in. It's clear that Diana, they have separated. And so Rishi is living, I'm assuming, in London, but Diana had come for his birthday to get him a birthday cake. But when he walks in, he sees that Vinay is there. And Diana is upset that he is there. And Rishi is so uncomfortable. But it finally comes out that Rishi owes Vinay £500,000 pounds. And Diana is like to Vinay, you broke us. You were preying on him. He is sick. You were preying on him. And he gets out a gun and he shoots her in the head. And then he takes whatever it is and he leaves. And so it's funny. We like just had an Instagram live with the character who played Rishi. But and I know Jen, you felt, and I did too. I was like, why did they need to kill off Diana?
I was
the
so
one
upset. Scene in this otherwise A+ finale that I felt physically ill watching. This is a young mother. And we saw Rishi's humanity. We saw Rishi get taken down. Harper stabbing Rishi was all I needed to see. Rishi has hit rock bottom. Because for Rishi, it's the job that gives him its identity. It's not his family.
Right.
And the gambling plotline to me felt like such a boondoggle that we didn't need. It was it was so much overkill. And so to actually shoot this woman in the head, to take this looming threat of physical violence and actualize it is so upsetting. Rishi is sitting there shocked with his wife's blood on his face.
Yeah.
Her face is in the cake. This tragic thing of this very like sweet and innocent thing of a birthday cake. I just had my son's birthday. It feels so, and to think of their child.
Right.
This is so horrible.
I know.
It was such a punch to the gut.
Yeah.
I felt sick watching this, and the second time around, I could barely watch it.
Same.
This
I was
scene
like dreading
affected
having
me
to watch it
so much
again.
more than most violence in any other show.
Well, and also because I loved Diana. I thought her character was
She
so
was
badass.
so great. She was so complex.
Yeah.
And the whole idea was actually that Rishi didn't break them. Had it not been for, like, that she was okay with all of Rishi's flaws. And maybe they were separated or whatever, but like, it wasn't Rishi. It was this thing external to Rishi. And, maybe the two were too inextricably intertwined.
Yep.
But I thought it was such a more interesting plot line that they were able to figure it out. And so to me, this was the inferior choice to go this direction. And I read this to mean that this is the end of Rishi.
Right.
So were we not to have watched this immediately ahead of going into season 4, where we do know that he comes back. We just got to talk to Sagar Radia, who plays Rishi. Yeah. Thank God that he's coming back. I do not know where they go with this character from here, because everything that makes Rishi has been stripped away from him.
Yep.
So it'll be really interesting to see how they can pull this off.
Yeah.
How they can reinvent this character, who is the best portrayal of a Wall Street trader that I have ever seen in my life. I don't know where they go from here. So I'm excited to see what they do. Okay. All right. Let's get to the two final scenes.
The two final scenes. All right. Here we have, next scene, Eric at Pierpoint in his chair, right at his desk.
Smiling and dialing.
Like calling people like, hey, what's up? Like lighting up a cigarette on the floor. And then he sees a call from Harper come in. And he picks up and Harper says, thank you for your comment in Forbes. A brilliant dropout whose ambition is boundless. Very magnanimous. Eric says, I'm glad you read it that way.
Magnanimous. This is the infinite largesse. At the end of the day, it is this final gesture from Eric to Harper that is the largesse. That is the generosity.
I thought it was both, again, Yasmin forgiving Harper and now almost Harper forgiving Eric, which is almost like that. Like, yes, he did that, but also that she is now opening the door to forgiving him.
Love that.
Because we know that he's the one who said, like, we got to get rid of that psychopath.
Yep.
Eric says, I'm glad you read it that way. And Harper says, I heard they released Swung something.
Swung the axe.
Swung the axe.
Or scepter, maybe.
Oh, that's what it was. The Skaith or something over there.
Scythe.
That's what it was. And Eric says, yep. And then he takes a drag of his cigarette with his baseball bat. And Eric asks how the cards fell. He says, how much money basically did you make on that short? And Harper says, not nearly enough. And so Eric then says, are you hiring? And they both laugh. And Harper says, I hope they paid you. Eric says, a lot, not enough. And then he says, I guess you know what they say. Being wealthy isn't the same as being loved. But Harper says, but most of the time it's close enough. And Eric then walks over and sees a photo of him from his grad year. And it's all the memories, right? He was there. He was the institution.
So that's the whole thing. That whole speech he gave about the immigrant son, bespectacled kid, he made it sound like he was just talking out of his ass and saying, like, whatever served him at the time. But he sees that photo, and there he is, that scared-looking, bespectacled, nerdy kid. That was who he was. He does believe this story about himself, and to see it end. And so that whole thing of, did you make the money for both of them? But never enough, because what's missing at the end of the day is their relationship, right? Is them being together.
Well, that's like the central love story. It's Eric and Harper.
This is the love story. It wasn't, for me, it was never Harper and Yaz as much as it truly was Harper and Eric.
Yeah, I agree with that, true, actually.
I think you see him choking up looking at this photo, and he says, you know, he puts out the cigarette on the floor, he steadies himself, and he says, you know, Harper, take care. And Harper, looking equally troubled, says, you too. And it seriously feels like these two characters are saying, I love you, right? Like, you know, in their way.
They do.
In their way. And then, you know, Eric goes back onto the floor, right? Like steals himself to go fire the next person and swinging the bat. Oh, sorry,
yeah, and then when he swings the bat, it then goes into Robert's face.
Well, he throws it.
Yes.
Right.
Well, he throws the bat, and it's like, you know, and then, but instead of seeing it land, then it goes back to Robert at the beginning of the episode where he is saying that same line. I'm sure you've all been programmed to expect something radical, but what I have for you here today isn't really new at all. And we actually hear still Eric talking. He's still firing people, by the way, on like the 10th floor. But regardless,
Robert says, your customers all belong somewhere on a sliding scale. The listless ennui of the hyper-privileged, the insatiable affluenza of the striver who was born with nothing. Our product is a shortcut to something higher, transcendence in a pill. The VC he's meeting with, they go down the list of everything that he's raised so far.
But it's Greg from season 1. It's the guy who wrote the Not an Exit.
It is?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. It's Not an Exit.
Is the VC guy?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. I didn't recognize him at all.
Yes, the first guy. It's the one who like kind of had a crush on Harper.
Oh, amazing.
Not an
I
exit.
didn't realize it's not an exit. Well, that's a fabulous thing that this is not an exit.
Also funny, like random fact, I heard when I was listening to the writers being interviewed, apparently like they did write something that they pitched to somebody was called Not an Exit. Like that was like them. They were the banker who like wrote a freaking screenplay called Not an Exit. But anyway.
Good job, guys. That's amazing. I did not even recognize him.
Yeah.
So he's got $1 million from Henry Muck or whatever, and they've got another $500,000 from Ashford Asset Management. So I took this to mean that actually Harper has gone to work with James Ashford, because we clearly know that she has left Leviathan Alpha.
Yes.
I think we can clearly read that or whatever. And then they go down all the list of the other people they're meeting with. So it's so funny because Robert is killing it, right?
He is. He's so good. He's so smooth.
He has finally self-actualized as the salesman he couldn't be, right? And he says, listen, I'm just here to give you an opportunity. Join us on the ground floor of what is going to be a spectacular journey. Mark my words. And then we get what we've been waiting for the whole episode, industry. And it's so funny because this is the most masterful series finale that I have ever seen. I mean, Game of Thrones, Lost, even Dark, which they wrote from the beginning and already knew the end for. No one has done it better. There is no better series finale that I've ever seen. And now, because it was so good, they're back. So it ended up becoming, I think, unintentionally, this is going to be the great journey. Because now we're getting season and guys, we are finishing up our recording here. We are live in the studio. We are going to close up our laptops and we are going to go shower and get changed. And we are going to the season 4
industry premiere.
We're going to get to see it live. I've never been to any kind of premiere of anything.
Oh my God, me neither.
We're going to interview the stars on the red carpet. Yeah. We just interviewed Sagar Radia, who plays Rishi. We're going to get to meet everyone else.
This is like, I mean, I wish we had hit record when this wonderful woman we work with, Alexis, told us that we were going to get, shout out to Alexis.
She made this happen for us.
When she told us, she's like, you guys, you better be sitting down. HBO has actually invited you guys to come to the season 4 premiere to interview the actors on the red carpet and then to go to the after parties. So
I've been shaking for 48 hours straight. Just the adrenaline coursing through my body right now, you guys have no idea.
Yeah.
You guys made this happen for us, dear listeners and dear watchers.
I mean, yeah.
But this is we've been friends since we were 7 years old. Like, who would have ever thought that we would get to do something as freaking cool as this?
But again, it's like the show combines things that we love. We love to talk about, obviously, like finance. I mean, clearly. But then, brings like the English major and like the friendship and the stories and like literally, I think I was going back actually because we're creating a new YouTube channel that's just going to house this content. One of the early episodes, you were like, today is my favorite day of the week. And I'm like, Tuesday? You're like, no, industry the day that we get to talk about industry. So we love this show so much. We are so grateful. I mean, the writers are just chef's kiss with this season. And we are so excited for season 4. So I don't know, Jen, any parting words before we...
Thank you guys for making this happen for us. This is we would be nothing without you guys and your support. So thank you for letting us do this.
Thank you. All right, let's do it.